Hello, everyone. And tonight, you're in for a treat. This is Marie LaBrosse with WKDW 97.5 FM, Real Community Radio. We are coming out of the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower out of Northport, Florida. And today, if you're really interested, and I hope you are, I want you to stay tuned for my guest right now, Brad Leo Lyon. Hi, Brad.
Hey, Mary, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And Brad, I'm so excited to have you because in our area, you're bringing some excitement to our area, and you have already, but you're back again and you're having a casting call for a new production that you have coming up. Before we get into that, because we want people to stick around and actually find out a little bit about you, the director. You're a producer.
I've
You
been
are,
in 30 some movies now, I think.
yeah, in fact, I'll be bringing that up. And as we're talking about it, I will bring it up on screen, and I'm going to bring you up on screen as a main person because I'm interested about finding about what you're doing. What are you doing here in Charlotte County, for one thing?
Well, initially, just for the sake of full disclosure, we weren't originally planning to film in the Charlotte County area. We had another film project called Killer Keg that we were starting in another area, and certain things happened where it wasn't an ideal area to film anymore. So we started looking for new locations that would better fit the project. We did a whole scouting of entire coastline, if you will, of Florida. Myself and one of our production assistants went around, and we located about 41 locations that would potentially fit the right vibe for Killer Keg. By the time we got back up to our location in Georgia, we started making phone calls to potentially locate the right fixes. See, our initial budget for this film just hit the bottom tier area of the minimum requirements for the Georgia Film Incentive. And when we had to spend a couple dollars and we lost a couple dollars here and there when we no longer qualified, it didn't seem as beneficial there when it would be a bit easier and slightly lower cost to film in Florida. But once we called those 41 locations, we found out we were down to 11 left. So when we had 11 left, we put up that list of those locations, and we just had to go for it. And we had scouted this area. We thought it might work out really well. So we came out here, and we were happy to make our initial film, Killer Keg, in the area, starring Jeremy London and Brink Stevens. We filmed in Inglewood and Punta Gorda and right in Port Charlotte and all the way out in, I believe, hope I'm saying the name right, Captiva in Sanibel Island.
Yes, exactly. And you filmed in Northport also.
Oh, that's correct. Yep. In Northport as well.
Yeah, so around this area, when is that film scheduled to come out, or did it already?
No. Post-production is a very long, monotonous labor. Your typical major motion picture studio will produce a movie that they shoot over the course of 3 to 4 months because they have big budgets. And they will take upwards of 9 to 12 months to edit your typical feature that doesn't have a ton of CGI, like an Avengers movie or what have you. And they do that with a team of 200, 300, 400 editors and matte painters and all these great post-production people. Now, our much smaller companies with our much smaller crews try and do the same amount of effort, only with far fewer people. So what would normally take them, 9 to 12 months, sometimes takes us a bit longer, and even more so when we ran into the headaches of filming during the pandemic. During the time we started, we actually got hit with the official stay-at-home orders. So even though we were able to get a few weeks into principal photography, there's certain pickup scenes we were never able to shoot. So what we're doing is we're going into post-production on the movie, editing the movie as best as we can, and finding out what we really need to work on to complete the film and make it the best movie we can, with all things being considered.
Well, when you were filming down here, when you made that decision to come here, because you filmed that back in 2020, the earlier part of 2020, correct?
You got it.
And when you were doing that, it was right before COVID hit, correct?
Yes, we were filming roughly at the into February, start of March, when we first got the stay-at-home orders, was, the first time stay-at-home orders existed, and that was back when they literally told you had to stay in, and the only thing you were allowed to do was, go to the grocery store or get takeout, So we really were handcuffed at that point. We even still had crew and certain cast members in town that we didn't know what to do, and we couldn't keep filming because of the restrictions. So it really did a number on that film.
So when did you finish that?
Well,
post-production.
Post-production's still ongoing. It'll be time-consuming because normally we don't do everything so remotely either. One of the things that benefits us is we'll put a small crew together and we'll just film full-time with 3 or 4, editors, colorists, what have you. But now we're having to attempt to do this more remotely by sending stuff back and forth. And these are extremely large files now that, we're in the era of 4K. So you have these giant files that will take days to upload, and then they'll process them and they'll color them and they'll send these proxies and then they'll send them back for another day. And it's just
a lot of work. A lot of work. And a lot of our audience probably does not realize how much effort goes into doing a production. There are so many facets to it. And truthfully, to me, out of all the industry that's been hit the hardest, I know people say the restaurants and all that, the art industry. Oh, yeah. Anybody in the art, you guys couldn't work. I have a lot of friends on Broadway. They're out of work till they're lucky if they go back in June.
And the worst part for so many of these people, and I understand this personally, is we didn't qualify for the unemployment benefits. So even though everyone was supposed to qualify, there's a whole process of qualifying. First, qualifying based in the current state you're currently residing. And then to qualify for that, you have to fit certain criteria. So, and the interesting part is it's a weird double-edged sword where they'll say, okay, you don't necessarily qualify for Florida, but you may still qualify for the federal kickbacks. But then as you go through the next process, the federal kickbacks will say, well, you probably may qualify for us, but to qualify, you'll have to qualify in your initial state. So we're like, wait, they said we don't qualify. You said we have to qualify through them. So you get literally hundreds of thousands of people in the film industry who don't qualify for help or assistance.
Well, a lot of you are considered independent contractors too. Yeah. And you get 1099s, and even though and that becomes a benefit thing too, because some people belong to unions, mm-hmm. and you get your benefits through the union portion, correct?
That's correct. You get your discounts. The majority of our unions provide certain benefits at certain rates. If you make X number of dollars, it's paid for. But if you make, and I'm throwing theoretical numbers out here, let's say you make $200,000 as a SAG-AFTRA member, your health benefits are paid for. But if you're only making $80,000 for that year, you qualify for this initial discount rate, but you still have to be able to afford, the $200-300 a month or what it takes for your insurance ride or otherwise. So we don't actually still get those benefits. Matter of fact, we don't even get the discounts because we don't qualify. And there's a huge uproar right now in the SAG-AFTRA union because of what they had negotiated. Basically cut off, there's about 200,000 members in the union, and basically cut off well over 100,000 people from actually receiving any type of benefit, especially from a health standpoint.
Well, and you're always a starving artist a lot of times in the industry, but now you really are a starving artist.
Literally.
You can't literally pay your rent. You can't literally go and get groceries. So you'll probably be one of the ones that are in the food lines that are trying to get some sort of assistance with food and that. I have friends in the theater industry, and I have the 2 friends. In fact, what we're using here is StreamYard right now. My friend Seth Radesky and James Wesley use it for the Actors Fund, and they do something live twice a day. And this is the way that they're raising money for the Actors Fund, to give them an opportunity to help the Actors Fund help those actors out there put food on the table and to pay the rent. And even in the nursing homes and that, they have money to help with people in nursing homes. So when you're talking about this, I want people to really understand the impact that COVID has done on the art industry. No matter what you do in the art industry, and we use art every day, Brad. We do. We're using this. This is art. When you were talking about the coloring of the visuals that you were doing, that's art. Uh, if you look at your desk, at your table, that is art. Everything we look and do in the world, somebody has to create that. Creating is art.
I agree completely, and you're 100% right. We all know, a lot of us all know what happened to us when things started to get shut down and when we started to get impacted. And then many of us did receive help, be it from the federal government, unemployment help, different thing, like different aspects along those lines, even the stimulus checks. And then yet, when you look at our art industry, the majority of those people, since those days back in February, March, the moment that stuff was cut off, they didn't get help. They didn't get unemployment. Those are people whose income came from the art. This was their job. This wasn't a hobby. This is their craft that they pursued. They put the time in, be it through college, through the universities, through just working from the grassroots on up to develop that as their career. This wasn't just some fun thing they used to do on the side. This is how they paid their bills, how they paid their mortgage, and all of a sudden they were receiving no help, and they were cut off from being able to do it. They being myself included. Luckily, I had managed to be relatively successful over a handful of years prior, and I had a little bit of a savings and what have you that enabled me not to be homeless. But I'll tell you what, if I was still living in LA, I probably would have been, at the cost of living out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And mental health, the mental health, that the toll that it has taken on most people. If we don't say that this hasn't affected any of us with our mental health, I think you would be lying. I would say, because you can't do the things that you're used to. You actually think before you even go out or go to a grocery store. Okay, what do I have to mask up? Do I need to wipe down everything? But with you guys, with the mental health, and they can't even go and do their craft. Many of them, and some of my friends are in the film industry too, and they said it's so weird on the set because they mask up, and then for the scene they take off everything, and then everybody comes and wipes things down in between, and it's just a whole different process. No, before we go on into your casting call, because I want people to wait till a little bit towards the end about that, we're going to talk about Brad Leo Lyon. You're originally from Flint, Michigan. And actually, one of the questions I asked Brad off air is, I go, Brad, what about that Flint, Michigan water? And your response was?
Well, I did happen to direct the movie, and regarding that, don't drink the water.
And so and where could people view that?
Well, as some people do know, we ran into a heck of a hurdle after the film was first released, and we were first starting to do our festival tour and build up the movie and try and get the word out about the horrible things that happened in the community and what was the truth of it, because there's a lot of misleading information throughout the media. The sad part is we kept getting restrictions. We couldn't get errors and omissions insurance for some reason, which we understand documentaries are a bit more difficult at times for but this felt like we were really getting handcuffed. And then all of a sudden we were being pulled out of certain festivals. And we're like, wait, why are we being pulled out of these lineups? And come to find out, long story short, a lot of the information we were providing in the actual film was information paramount to the actual cases that are now ongoing, including those that are necessarily going against former Governor Rick Snyder out there. So we realized the information we were providing just simply couldn't be put out in the public yet.
So are you holding that film?
We're trying to figure out the best
way to put it out there.
Because as we talk with E&O agents and we talk with our entertainment lawyer, a lot of the requests are, if we take this out, if we do this, if we remove that, we could release this. And once you start taking out certain elements of it, it's not that you're no longer telling the truth, but you're overtly missing some major aspects of the truth, which hinder on telling the truthful story. So, we don't want to, provide a film that's half truths. And we also don't want to be so untimely because of how late the film goes out that it, has no impact, and for the sake of our investors, makes no return on their finances. So we're in quite a dilemma on that one.
Now, how do you get your financiers?
Well, each individual film is different, but typically for a Lion Productions film, we fund them in house. We have a small group of fellow producers, and we're all small budget investors. So as opposed to having to have someone who can cut $100,000 or $200,000 check, or one studio cutting $1 million check, when we have 10 people who, we might only have to come up with a single investment unit at $5,000, or maybe a person does 20 or 25 grand. It's more feasible for the average person to be able to do it. So we put a group of our normal investors together, each one owning a certain portion, and we raise that through about 50% of the actual budget, or the 100% of the budget for about 50% ownership in the actual revenue of the film. And then a guy like myself will go out and make the movie, and then we'll try and return the investment as best we can.
So ROI. That, and in case anybody's out there interested in investing in any of the films that Brad or any of the productions, get a hold of Brad Leo Lyon. And he does have a IMDb page that I'll be bringing up here shortly. Brad, you originally are from Flint, Michigan. Tell me a little bit about your education. How did you end up going into film?
Well, that's a funny thing, as most people who are familiar with me, I failed miserably to play football for a living. I was a law student whose minors were in image consulting, trying to basically get a foundation in becoming a sports entertainment rep. The original plan wasn't to become a film director or a film producer. Matter of fact, it wasn't until because of football that door opened up. I remember seeing in my office, my father and I bought a minor league sports team together, and not one that cost millions of dollars, mind you, but we had a team which we owned together for about 8 years or 9 years, I believe. And I was sitting in my office one day, and I get a phone call from the president of the Visitors Bureau, a nice gentleman by the name of Jerry Preston. And he asked me, he said, I talked with your father. He says, you're still up at the office. By any chance, could you meet with a few individuals? They need a favor. Jerry didn't often ask for favors, so usually if there's a favor needed, it was pretty, significant, and there's a valuable reason to it. So I said, sure, I'm at the office. I'll wait for them to come up. And sure enough, in walked Ron Reiner, Scott Marshall from Happy Days, and Michael Mendelsohn worth $1.8 billion. When a man worth $1.8 billion walks into your office saying he needs a favor, you listen up, And I asked them what the situation was, and they had a movie they were producing with an amazing cast. Cedric the Entertainer, and Margaret, Christina Ricci, Matthew Lillard, Bill Engvall. I mean, the cast just went on and on with all these fantastic individuals. My buddy Marty Klebo, who became a producing partner of mine from Pirates of the Caribbean and all those films, he was a member of that cast, and I believe the first time I met him. So we had this amazing cast on this film, but they had one major problem. Their lead actor, Jack Black, had just dropped out. And lo and behold, I know I get the comments here and there. I either look like Jorge Garcia or Jack Black, but it wasn't because I looked like him that they came to me. They had a single actor who was willing to take on a script with no day's notice before he starts filming. His name was Owen Benjamin, and he's 6'7" and this giant, in good shape gentleman. Did not look like Jack Black at all. And because of that, they decided they had to rewrite the script. They wanted him to be a college football star that was going to have to work at a run fair because he kept missing class. And one of the classes he was blowing off was his drama class, and his professor, Cedric the Entertainer, said, you're going to have to go work at this run fair or you're going to fail, which makes you ineligible for football. So their storyline was they needed to make him look like a football player. They needed football players, a stadium, cheerleaders, uniforms, the whole shebang. They said, can you help with this? And I said, sure. They're like, great, we need you to get everything. The stadium, the players, the uniforms, coordinate the scenes. I'm like, all right, when do we begin? And they're like, well, call time's going to be 8 a.m. I'm like, all right, I'll get up there bright and early. We'll start making phone calls. I'll get this together for you. And they're like, well, no, we kind of need to film those scenes starting at 8 a.m. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, we'll do what we can. But lo and behold, we pulled it off. Those scenes made it into the movie. Matter of fact, they paid tribute to me as a thanks throughout the film, which was so kind of them that they've actually carried my logo throughout the movie in numerous scenes. So whenever you saw one running around wearing this Uncle Sam Patriot logo, that was our minor league football team Patriots logo. But it was a great experience. I got to help out, got to coordinate those scenes, got to get all those things organized for them. And next thing I know, I'm getting a couple other phone calls, crazy ones. Well, one time from Adrian Brody on behalf of a production, and he got a phone call from, I believe, Mike, and he said, "Hey, we're in need of something. They thought if I called you directly, it might be a bit helpful." And I'm like, "Well, I almost hung up because I didn't believe it's you, but then you dropped Mike's name. I get it." So I wound up coming out to another project to help out there. And next thing I knew, I was making more money, to put it bluntly, and being called upon more often in the world of film to help out on various productions, usually as a sports coordinator, than I was actually in my own realm, which was playing football for a living. So next thing I know, I start coordinating full time. I'm getting into producing because I wrote a script for another very successful producer that won an award or two. And then they come to me and they're like, "Hey, there's a potential union strike. We don't know if we want to shoot this where we're going to shoot. So your choice is you could executive produce and try and shoot it out here. And you're also potentially losing an incentive. Or we could, shelve it and see what happens." I said, "Hey, we'll give it a try." So I spent some time learning to become a producer and paying my way onto other film sets where I was paying producers to let me and directors to let me carry a coffee cup for them and just learn from them and shadow them. And I learned from some legendary people who allowed me to do so. And by the time I got into it, I was able to produce a pretty successful film. And the second one I went to executive produce. We had an incident where we didn't feel the director and I saw the right vision for certain scenes. And, last minute, they're like, "Well, why don't you just direct this scene so you let this director go?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess I could." I didn't think I did that good of a job, but that film did okay. And now here I am, having directed over a dozen more movies.
Wow. And interesting. I'm going to bring up on the screen your your IMBD. Do you have a website itself?
Yeah, I sure do. Now, this name, the domain, might be hard to remember, but if
Okay.
you try and remember my name, it's possible. It's bradleolyon.com.
Oh, it's that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's literally my name.
I'm actually going to put that down on the bottom of the screen so people can see it. And that way, and is that how they get a hold of you for anything?
Oh, that's a great spot to go to. There's information about our upcoming casting call on there. There's contact information on there. It also has links to my social media, which is always at Brad Leo Lyon. So, if it's Instagram or Facebook or what have you, you always can find me the same way. And I'm very reachable. You'll usually be able to get either directly to me or occasionally one person who will help manage some of the social media. But most every question or post I will try and answer in some manner. So I'm always out there trying to communicate.
Well, and I'm going to bring that up on the screen so people can see that are actually watching us out here. When we're looking at this, in case there's any audio on there, I will do that. You can actually explain to people what they're looking at here. You can see that there, correct?
Yeah, and that opening one said COVID delays our tour. I had a movie coming out way back in April that sadly got pushed. As a matter of fact, there's the name of it, Thursday the 12th. So that'll be coming out a little later this year.
Instead of Friday the 13th, Thursday.
You got it.
Oh, now what kind of genre do you normally go after?
I'm known more as a horror comedy guy, and I do truly love horror and horror comedies. I won't disagree that it's a bit more my forte. With that being said, I got started producing, sports movies. I love comedy. I come from a comedy background. I would say when it really comes down to cinema, even though I do have a genre of preference in terms of just what I'm passionate about, cinema is about being able to paint a visual picture and have performances be truthful. So it really doesn't matter what type of film you're doing, as long as you're being honest about the film. You know, if you're trying to find truthful, honest concepts and believable performances.
No, I'm looking at your website, and I'm thinking it's showing up on the screen for everybody there, to make sure that when you're looking at it, actually, it's a great website.
Thank you.
It really is. It tells a lot. There's no, you know how sometimes you go to websites, you got to really search
Mm-hmm.
for different things. I like having that up at the top. Now, these are your films that are films. Visit our films page, which I will do right now for people.
Your Killer Cake that was made right here in the local Port Charlotte, Charlotte County area.
Yeah, and and
Both the newest one coming to theaters.
oh, okay, wow, well, you have some actors there.
Yeah, well, usually you'll find familiar faces. Killer Cake, which we shout out here at Jeremy London from Party of Five, and of course from Star of Mallrats. Matter of fact, the one you're on right now, Monsters on Main Street, starred Robert Zadar, who's a Hall of Famer. Todd Bridges from Different Strokes. Everyone seems to you're pulling up Little Creeps. That was the first one I directed. Little Creeps had Dustin Diamond. Where he's facing bats with cancer right now, so I hope he does well with that. Jake the Snake Roberts, the WWE Hall of Famer, Lark Voorhees from Saved by the Bell, Joe Estevez, the Martin Sheen's brother and Charlie Sheen's uncle. Most all of our films usually have a cast that's comprised of working actors that we all know on some level from many classic films, movies, and TV shows.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm just, I'm fascinated with being able to do film in the area because we do have a variety of even retired actors that live around here and people that have been in the industry. When you were in college and when you were doing what you were doing because that wasn't your vision for yourself, and the universe made it happen for
Oh
you.
yeah, there was no question about that. And if I would have looked at my life, I would have always knew. I mean, I was the guy who went to the theater 2-3 times a week with his family. Every day of my life. Growing up, not just would we make sure we caught like every mainstream film, but we even had a dollar theater we never missed a dollar show at. So I was always a cinema guy. I was raised on horror movies since I was 3, and it wasn't a thing we would pass up. So this was always the calling. I just didn't hear it yet. Matter of fact, if you take a look at that image that was just on your screen that just flew by, that open casting call image that will probably pop up here again in a second, that was actually from right here in the Port Charlotte area. Our original open call we did for Killer Cake was held over at the Charlotte Harbor Event Center. We were gonna do this one again, but they were quite a bit booked up, and we needed to do the casting call for Let's Party, and also in theaters. Oh, there's that one right there.
Yeah, I'll bring it up so people can see on the screen. We can talk about that right now, and I'll put you small so people can see it. And let's talk about your open casting call because I'm sure there's a lot of people interested in this, and I know I'm holding you from dinner.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're looking,
I'm big enough. I think I'll survive.
okay, well, you know what? I hear you on my end. As you're looking at this, your auditions are going to be at the Sleep Inn, which is by Kings Highway for people if you don't know where that is. And it's on Saturday, February 6th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, when you're doing that, and if people have never done a casting call, what are you looking for? And I know that it said when I was looking, what exactly characters? Oh, it's a scary one. Is it a scary one?
Oh no, this is actually one of the rare ones that's not part of my normal horror genre. Let's Party is more of a political drama. We're actually holding a casting call for 2 productions at the same time. Also in theaters is a TV series that basically is kind of like reality TV where follows a film crew or a group of film professionals around in the world of promoting movies outside the major studio system. So you'll get to actually get an inside look at like if you're ever familiar with guys like Kevin Smith when he does his Q&As and he'll do this stand-up performance in front of thousands after watching the screen of his film. We're going around and doing that with Thursday the 12th release, where I'll be doing Q&As in front of audiences. There will be radio and television interviews where the cameras will get to follow us. We'll have VIP parties that you don't normally get to see inside of that cameras will actually be there for. So we're casting for part of the narrative elements of that, as well as Let's Party, which is a political drama with a touch of comedy that basically falls around the aspect of our of how we kind of suppress third parties in the United States, how we try and lock ourselves into the duopoly of two parties. And we have a weird approach to having there being alternatives. So it just takes a look at the fact that there are third parties out there, and is it truly a wasted effort to support them?
Well, I do. The show actually we're going to air on is normally my history show, so we're doing the history of film here. And with that, I do history. And if you go back, and I'm going to bring up Hitler because I did some research on him. There were 16 parties in Germany at the time when he ran. And at that time, when I was doing the research, I did not know the Nazi Party was a political party.
Yep.
And how he got into power and the whole bit how the rise of the Nazis within 3 years had happened and were killing people, especially if you were socialist or communist, became acceptable, and how he started his concentration camps and how that all started. That's why I always tell people, look back into history and you'll really see that it repeats itself. You just got to watch of what's going on in the world. That's what the January 6th thing reminded me of, that people, you need to be watching history because this isn't the first time some of this stuff has happened. You just got to go back and see in history where some of these things may have had happened with the insurrections and the rising of people that don't agree with your same philosophy. And at that time, Germany was an independent democracy at that time when that happened. So there's a lot to be learned in history, but enough about history.
Well, actually, I was going to build off of what you said on history. That actually builds into the whole "Let's Party" concept, which I realize is a play on the words of party. But a lot of the common people would shock me because we actually followed up and did our own poll on this. The majority of people don't realize that our own two parties were not the original parties. They don't realize that they themselves were third parties. So quite often when you're talking about it, you'll get some comment from people who will be like, a third party could never succeed in America. That's just not how America was designed. From our birth, we were built as this two-party system. I'm like, yeah, minus the fact that the Whigs were the first party, and there's actually a party called the Democratic Republican Party.
Right, it's a Federalist Party, and you can go back through, and the Green Party, we have the Green Party. Yeah. And if you look at it, it's just because of the power that is involved when you're doing political parties, and it's about power and money.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times people go there with a good intent, but by the time they get to the federal level, city, you're okay. You're being influenced by the people around you, and you stay for the people. You go to county level, it's still pretty good. You go to the state level, when people are assigned lobbyists, you're actually assigned a lobbyist when you go to the state and federal level. To me, lobbying is a legal way of bribery.
Oh, yeah. You're 100% accurate.
Yeah, and I just, and I think people need to educate themselves a little bit more on how the whole process works and why people make those decisions. And then when they get where power and money overtakes instead of human decency, making.
Well, it's such a weird situation too, because, we're so controlled by lobbyist dollars that our government's almost become an oligarchy. But at the same time, like, it's hard to be able to say, okay, let's completely get rid of the concept of lobbying, because here's the thing. That's all we have to do to politicians. We have to lobby for the sake of, what our concerns are, whether we're public interest or it's a corporate interest. We're out there lobbying so that they will create a bill or they will vote on a bill to benefit the community. So it's not that the concept itself is evil, it's how that we allow the concept to be misused.
Well, even in having Congress in unlimited instead of putting a cap on it, the president has a cap of 8 years. Are you making it as a profession? Evidently,
Well, that's
you're
where our checks and balance system forgot to find the right foundation, because we created a loophole. The people who decide on if they are going to have a term limit are the people who would have term limits, and who's going to limit themselves to their own occupation.
and their benefits and their pensions. I mean,
They give themselves a raise. That's the craziest thing in the world.
well, and I think we're getting off the subject of with you, but I think that us people, should be able to vote on that. I think that should be my decision. And it'll never happen because I don't know if people are out there that would put a limit on it. Let's get back to you, though, with the politics here. We want to talk about your audition, and I want to ask you, too, about your audition as we bring this up here. Let me go there. As we bring this up, do you need headshots? Do you need a resume? When people are coming, what do you expect from somebody coming for an audition?
So if this was, with no offense meant to the Charlotte community, if this was New York or LA, yes, you better believe I would expect you to come as a professional. That means you've got headshots, you've got a resume. Heck, you probably have a reel you've already linked me to before you show up. But we also know we're filming in Florida. We're holding a casting call in Florida. So the majority of the people who are going to come aren't used to this being their profession. You're not used to this being your full-time concern. So we understand that. So you're welcome to show up without a entertainment resume or without a headshot. Yes, it'd be nice if you brought one. No, you don't have to go out and spend the hundreds of dollars to have a great headshot photographer make it. But I will suggest this. If you want to pursue auditions and work in film or television, you should have headshots. But we don't require that. I'm used to being, I get this term thrown at me all the time as being kind of like a gatekeeper, where the level of films I do has working professionals and known actors in it, but often allows other people a new opportunity to break into the field. We're kind of like, as they use the term, a gatekeeper, allowing those people to kind of get their foundation into the world. And with that being the case, I enjoy having people get their first opportunities on our sets. I love helping birth new careers, So come on down, whether you have a headshot or resume or not. You're always going to be welcome. You're going to be treated the same exact way. But outside of pursuing for our films, I do say if this winds up being something you really want to go after, get our entertainment resume put together. Just Google it, figure out how it's done. It's not very hard. Get a headshot done from a headshot photographer for film. Don't just ask your local portrait artist to do it, because there's a big difference in quality headshots, and it stands out to a casting director.
I'm going to bring up on the screen because I've done this for people. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if it showed up okay, because I don't have my dual.
On my end, it's looking good. On this
so people are aware normally when you are putting, this is a real generic one that I have up here. I should have probably brought up one that I really have.
Well, it's not bad in format. I'm looking at this, and if I received it, I would be pretty okay with it. The whole adding the photo to the resume thing is a little newer. In the olden days, which I kind of grew up in, I've been doing this for 15 plus years now. You would actually have your headshot on one side and the resume would be on the
right. Anyway. Yeah, and I normally do that. I normally do that, and I do suggest that.
Personally, I like this format. I'm not against it. It's just not traditional. I like the fact that I can look and be like, oh yeah, that's that person. That's great on my end. It's just not traditional. Matter of fact, traditionally, that information that you see on the right side of the where the photo would be inserted would actually be broke up a bit and on the top right hand side. So a lot of people will try and argue and talk about resumes like, well, how do you know this is the right way? Blah, blah, blah. Like, actually, it's real simplistic. Before the age of technology, when this all started, and for decades upon decades, when someone was digging into a file folder trying to find an actor, a director would tell the casting director, look, I want someone who's 6'3", or I want someone with brown eyes or 30-inch inseam, and they would go and they would grab this group of papers, and the trick in your resume, how you did it professionally, was in the top right, you would put that bit of information so that a casting director could just start flipping through the top right form and find where the height weight is and be like, okay, here's a brown one, here's brown eyes, here's 30-inch inseam, and they would form that pile. So that's how traditionally the original resumes were designed. We don't really
I'm going to bring up the traditional one because I believe it or not, because I've done so much with film. Let me show you here.
Actually, that one wasn't far off. Oh, that one right here, it's not far off at all. It's just
I have the wrong one up, and that what I was going to actually show you a real one, and Casey Nemec, she probably will kill me that I do this, but well, maybe not, because Casey Nemec owns a dance studio here. However, she actually is an actress, and she was able to do some jobs, and I think she works with Home Shopping Network too, but she's local here, and I know that I've helped her with some other jobs, getting them, and I probably, well, you know what, we have a little bit of time left here, but just for people to know, when you show up at an interview, for actually going for an audition, be prepared. That's one of the things that I really hate when people do show up for them. Do your research before you go in, and actually do your research about Brad and his people behind the scenes, because if you can't, people do business with people that they know and trust. If you look out there and if you know somebody in the industry, or if you want to get to be able to do what you're doing, that's why you see a lot of these actors are in the same films together, and maybe the same producer or director do them, because they trust their work. They know what they can get out of them. They become friends. However, that is how, no matter whether you're in acting or in business or anything in life, isn't that true, Brad? How you work with people? I'm sure the people that work with you all the time, you know who to pick up the phone and call. If you're in a jam and you need that person, like they just called you and you filled in for Jack Black, somebody knew you and knew your dad and called up and figured that, you know what? We can have Brad come in and fill in, and we know his character, so we know that he's going to be able to pull this off. And it changed your life.
Oh yeah, that it did, and I'm very blessed for it because I'll be honest, that football career wasn't taking off too much, and I have worked in talent management, even though that was the original goal. I actually didn't shy away from it. I had the pleasure of representing such people as Hall of Famer Robert Zadar, took care of Rosie for a few. Huntington, not O'Donnell. I had a privilege of working with a number of talent over the years, but I'm very blessed to be able to direct. I mean, who doesn't want to be able to play around in their imagination? But you did it, pardon me, but you did hit it on the head. Do a little research, understand, what people are looking for. No, in this case, it's a cold read, so you just come in, you're going to get the sides handed to you that day. But, do your best to just come in, to listen, because the number one most important aspect of film, if you want to be an actor, it's not memorizing lines, it's not like having a great memory, it's about being truthful. And to be truthful and honest in the way in which you perform, your strongest aspect is being a great listener, because when you listen to someone, you respond emotionally truthfully. If you're not listening and you're just waiting to speak, you're not acting, you're just reciting. You're reciting something you prepare in your head. And that's not being truthful as an actor. So just come out, listen, learn, and don't expect to win a role your very first audition. Do this as a training opportunity. I think, oh goodness, who was it? Um, a friend of mine from Pirates of the Caribbean once told me he doesn't work professionally as an actor. He works professionally at auditions, and he gets blessed with getting to act. Here's a person who's worked in some of the biggest films ever released, $100 million, $200 million films that made $1 billion at the box office. And this gentleman goes to 15, 20 auditions in a week. And guess what? Not everyone says yes. Your job isn't to act. Your job is to aggressively go out and audition and try and look at the characters presented, create your concept of what you believe the vision of the director might be, and try and sell that. And then just hope that the director and the casting director agrees. And if not, you just keep going. You keep going audition to audition. If you go to 100 auditions and you land one, you did great. You landed one. And you know what? If you do 100 and you fail, do 100 more. But just go do it.
And I really am glad that you brought up vision, because you may not have the right look that the director is thinking in their mind for that character. It has nothing to do with you personally. When a director looks, or a casting agent looks at a person, they a lot of times have a description in their mind of what they want that character to look like. And remember, it is a character too. Um, a- when I work with kids and that, with doing theater and that, I say, you become the character. And that's why a lot of the actors that you talk to that go into these really deep roles, it gets into them psychological, because they do become that character.
By the way, I love those actors. So if you're Method out there, please do come.
Oh, yes, yes.
I trained Method pretty heavily over the years. I'm a Meisner guy too, and I even studied Adler for a minute. God rest her soul. Even though I don't exactly agree with the Adler philosophy. Yeah, method actors. I love you. I love the concept of you just completely getting rid of yourself and trying to just embrace the character.
Right, absolutely. No, just so for the audience of people that don't know what a side is, because if you've never done any kind of acting or even going in to do a read, sides are actually the words on the paper of the scene and what's happening there. And they'll give you a cold read, also means that you go in, there's no preparation for it. They'll give you the sides, which are the lines, and then you read them and then you say them. You normally give them a chance to see what they are and then go into the read, don't you?
Yeah. In my case, we don't provide you the sides in advance of the day of the audition, but
Right.
we do provide them in advance of you actually performing for a bit. So you get an opportunity to actually try and see if you can become that character in that moment, know the dialogue and perform it, hopefully, off paper or off book, as they say. Now, does that mean you can't hold the paper? No. But we give you enough time that with the limited amount of dialogue that you have to prepare, it's very reasonable that you should be able to perform in front of us without that paper. So here's a secret, piece of information we don't normally tell you. You probably shouldn't be reading it in your audition at the point we give you. Matter of fact, there's nothing more humorous for us, and I'm going to tell all your viewers here a secret. My normal staff is actually told to make little notes of the people who have been basically just blowing off the first hour while they're waiting to actually get up, who aren't actually doing the research, what have you. And then if those people show up and they knock it out of the park and don't have the paper and they blew, great for them. But if they are there and they're complaining about the fact that they had to wait an hour or even 2 hours before they finally got to audition, but they come in and they don't even know the dialogue that was on the paper and they're reading it from the paper, but they had an hour or 2 hours to get these darn 3 or 4 or 5 sentences down, I can just about guarantee you're automatically cut.
And I always tell actors, you're on audition. Your audition starts the minute you hit that parking lot. When you're walking in, you better be like you're on audition. You don't know who's watching you. And so many times I have had to tell this to students or other adults, make sure that You're not the whiner out there. You're not the difficult one to work with because nobody wants to work with you.
You
I
got
don't
it.
care how talented you are. They don't want to work with you. There's too much drama, going on behind the scenes. Nobody has time for that. Time is money, and that's where that comes in. Time is money. I don't want to work with a diva or
Hmm.
or a deva. I don't know what a guy is. I just always what are guys called?
I call them divas too. I believe it's a non-gender based term.
Okay. Well, in today's world, non-gender is good.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Brad, it's been a pleasure to be speaking with you today. And I do want to remind everybody, and I'll bring it up on the screen here, that auditions for Brad is 11 to 7 p.m. at the Sleep Inn in Port Charlotte. And I don't know, is the address considered Punta Gorda? It may.
Oh, it's a Port Charlotte address. I believe it's 806 Kings Highway, Port Charlotte. And I'm sure anyone who's remotely from the area knows it's the one hotel right at the exit there. It's the only one that's got a big enough convention room. We actually held all of our callbacks there last year. So if you went to the Charlotte Harbor Events Center and you were one of the hundreds of people in line there, you eventually got to attend our callbacks at the Sleep Inn. Now, this time we don't expect the hundreds of people. We definitely don't have the same resources to be able to get the word out. So with that being the case, which by the way, thank you, Mary, for helping get the word out. With that being the case, you're going to get that environment in a much more kind of, all-inclusive type of environment. It won't feel as daunting.
Right, especially when you're doing it at the Charlotte Harbor Event Center, it's a big hall. You know,
Hmm.
people walking. We're at the Sleep Inn. I imagine you'll be in the main room,
Yeah.
and they'll be having you come through there. Again, February 6th, 11 to 7 p.m., 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Sleep Inn in Port Charlotte. It's right off of Kings Highway. Actually, if you're going
That's
to the
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel, if you go to the Cracker Barrel, there's two hotels there, the Comfort Inn and the Sleep Inn. Go to the Sleep Inn and make sure and you'll be signing in as people are coming in. If you can have some sort of a resume, if you have any background in that, and be prepared, and remember your audition starts in that parking lot. So when you're walking in, you make sure you're prepared and ready to go. Thank you so much, Brad. And thank you to our audience. This is Marie LaBrosse from WKDW 97.5 FM Real Community Radio. We're coming out of Northport, Florida. And one of the things that I always say to my audience, you have choices in life to make, to be kind or not to be kind. Please choose kindness. Have a great day and see you at the auditions February 6th at the Sleep Inn with Brad Leo Lyon, right at that Sleep Inn. Thank you all and have a wonderful night.